Dog Works Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
Start your day tomorrow with The Daily Dog with Michelle Forto, the morning podcast on Dog Works Radio. Apple Podcast reviewer Patty Christensen calls it funny, smart, and filled with all the info I want to know about dogs. I love this show. Wake up with The Daily Dog, available on Dog Works Radio on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your shows.
Dog Works Radio Network presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Matsu Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can hear all of our episodes over on DogWorksRadio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media, searching for DogWorks Radio. And calling in today from Lebanon, Missouri, we have a dog musher. Her name is Joy Weis. Joy, how's it going today?
It's going well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. I am excited to talk to you. You're one of the lucky athletes to be heading over to Sweden in a couple of months to race for Team USA in some dryland events. But before we jump into that, Joy, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you're all about for our listeners, please?
Sure. So my name is Joy Weis, and I live in Lebanon, Missouri, so the southwest part of the state. There's not a whole lot of people who participate in dog-powered sports in this area, so it's been very important to myself and my husband, who also participates, to be able to sort of be ambassadors for the sport and introduce people to all of the really cool things that they can do with their dogs. For a profession, I work for a health center that focuses on making sure everybody has access to medical and dental and behavioral health care. I am a runner. I enjoy spending time outside. I like to cook, read, try new things, be active, just enjoy life.
Excellent. And you race under the banner Lucky Fox Mushing and Racing, and we're going to post some links to your page over, or links to your website over on your show page. But my first question to you, Joy, being in Missouri, how did you get involved with dog-powered sports? Because most people, when they think of them, they often think of snow dogs and dog sledding and that sort of stuff.
So my husband and I are both runners. We've been running for a long time. And when we got married, we decided to get an Alaskan Malamute and add him to our family. He was about 4 months old when we got him, and he had a lot of energy. My husband had always wanted a Malamute. I thought they were great dogs, so we were really excited to have him. But we quickly learned that we were going to have to do something with that energy. So we started running with him. And because of that, I decided, well, I want a dog that I can run with as well. So we adopted an Alaskan Husky named Denali. So we had two at that time. So we both had someone to run with. That winter, we actually, here in Missouri, had a lot of snow. We found a sled on Craigslist, decided that sounded like fun, hooked those two up, and it's all sort of just snowballed from there. And now we participate in canicross and bike tour and, do some sled racing when we can get up north and some dry land mushing as well. So it's all thanks to that Malamute. He really got us involved.
There is always one catalyst, I believe, to get us started. Mine was a Siberian Husky way back in 1987. His name was Axel from, of course, the Guns N' Roses fame back in the day. But can you tell us a little bit about that first dog? Where did he come from? What year was that you first became acquainted with this breed and, of course, started in with the sports?
Sure. So his name is Ruger, and he is 8 years old now. So we still have him. He still runs with us. And he came from just a small family breeder near us. We actually started looking for a Malamute, and, there aren't a lot in our area. We came across this breeder, and at the time it just wasn't right for us to get a puppy. I was finishing my doctorate degree, my husband was finishing his schooling, and it just was not the right time to have a puppy. So we said, we're going to wait, even though this puppy seems perfect. We're going to just wait. And I was just looking at their website several months later when I was back for the summer. His schooling was almost complete, and the family who had adopted Ruger actually returned him because they couldn't care for him. Well, at that point, he had already been housebroken. He knew how to sit. He knew how to walk on a leash. And we thought, well, that sounds perfect. And now he's part of our family, and he is one of our lead dogs. He's just an incredible animal all around.
Well, guys, when you're listening to us here on the show, you have to go over to LuckyFoxKennel.com and check out the picture of Ruger right there on the Meet the Team page. He has such a huge smile on his face, and he looks like such a ham. He looks like the perfect dog to get you guys involved with this. And you had mentioned, Joy, that you got another dog named Denali. I guess you had mentioned that was your dog, and then in typical musher fashion, 1 equals 2, and then it sort of multiplies from there, and before you know it, you have a whole team of sled dogs. But you're concentrating in the dryland events in Canicross, which is typically with one dog. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So who are you going to be running? Do you know yet when you head over to Sweden?
So my plan is to run with one of our husky mixes named Oso. Oso actually competed in Poland at the last World Championships with IFSS with my husband, and he's also competed again in Poland at ICF with my husband as well. But this year I'm going to take Oso, or at least that is my plan, to take him with me to Sweden.
Well, it sounds like an awesome opportunity to head over there and represent the United States in this huge event. I've talked to a couple of you guys that are heading over. Tell us about the opportunity. How did you get involved with this? And I guess a second part of that question, what is the selection process? You had mentioned your husband had went before. Is this a pretty big deal to be selected for this team? And how does that become reality, I guess?
It is. So, we got involved, like I said, thanks to Ruger, and we started finding races that were sanctioned and participating, in those races that we could really compete. And both my husband and I actually went 2 years ago to Poland for IFSS, and then last year to ICF in Poland as well. But the process, it's essentially twofold. So there is a point process and then an application as well. So, the United States Federation of Sled Dog Sports wants to have a team that represents the U.S. well. People who are going to go and show what our country, is all about and be professional and, have athletes that are really going to be able to compete at the level that, you need to have to compete on that stage. And so the selection process, you want to be able to be a very well-rounded athlete and person when you travel overseas to represent the sport and our country.
And for the folks that I've already spoken to, this is truly an American-type selection process. I think a lot of our listeners to our show, again, think about winter sports, think about Alaska, think about sprint racing, and, of course, Iditarod and stuff like that. But I know you had mentioned you're from Missouri. Another guy is from Indiana. Another gal is from Wisconsin. You guys are all over the map, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
So evidently, as you guys get selected and you get ready to head over, is this something of the only thing I can equate it to is like the Olympics? Do you guys meet up together and train together over in Sweden, or you just show up on a Saturday afternoon for a Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening race? Tell us a little bit about the process when you get over there.
Sure. So some of the athletes will be traveling together just because, it's difficult to manage all of your luggage and a dog and yourself. And so it's nice to have someone to be able to travel with and help you if you don't have family going with you. So some of the athletes will be traveling together. Many of us will be staying together once we get to Sweden. So we may be flying into different airports, but a lot of people will be staying in the same lodging, which is very conducive for team meetings and get-togethers and just really bonding as a team, and being able to, transport back and forth to the race site and watch each other compete. And, I think we really want to have that team feel where everyone is there supporting each other and just being a part of something that's a really cool experience.
I have to say, Joy, what I found amazing is you guys are heading literally across the world, and in an event like yours in Canicross, you're going over there for just a few minutes. You're going to be on the track for, just several minutes in each heat. Can you tell our listeners about that, all of that preparation, all of those logistics for literally being on the course for less than a half an hour?
It's interesting when you think about that because you think about all the time and effort you put in and money, resources that you put into being able to do that for something that seems so small yet is so big at the same time. It's months of training and training your dog and preparing them, preparing yourself, eating right, purchasing tickets, making travel arrangements, and taking care of yourself and your pet. So, your dog, so you're not hurt or, they're not stressed out when you get there, all for, like you said, less than 20 minutes at least, on the course. But that's what you recognize that going into it. I don't have a lot of time out there and I have to make the most of it and I have to be prepared and be ready. And, yes, it's a lot to go over there to do just such a short amount of time, but it is so worth it.
So I have to ask a little bit about logistics. And again, most people that are listening now probably are thinking something like the Olympics and Team USA and that sort of thing. But my first question in regards to logistics, is this a self-funded endeavor or is it a pooled financing thing? Is it sponsorship? How are you paying for this?
So every athlete will likely do it a bit differently. It is a self-funded endeavor. Some athletes are going to maybe have some sponsorships to help out a bit with the funding. Some would maybe use GoFundMe pages or do some type of fundraiser to help bring in a little bit of money. Some people are just going to buy the plane tickets and go. So it all depends on the athlete and what their financial resources look like to begin with. And it is a big commitment for someone to be able to take on because it is not cheap to fly one dog or two dogs, or if you're participating in, one of the rig classes, 4 or 6 dogs, that's not cheap by any means. So each athlete sort of figures out their own way to make it happen.
And when you're traveling overseas, you always have to deal with a bunch of logistics with traveling with a dog, and I know every country is a little bit different. And I remember just this winter I was watching videos with Dallas Seavey traveling over to Norway with his team to race in the Finnmark, and he was making several trips back and forth from Alaska to Seattle to Norway and doing all of this stuff. Can you tell us a bit about traveling with a dog in, from a relatively small area of Missouri to someplace in Sweden? Do you go through Chicago and New York and all of that and over? Do you know yet?
Sure. So, we don't have an airport in our area where we can get a direct flight to Sweden. We're flying into Stockholm. So we actually will drive to Chicago and fly direct from Chicago we'll be going into Germany and then on up to Sweden. So we actually still don't have a direct flight, but you want to minimize the amount of transfers that you have to make. Also, we try to fly overnight. So our flight out of Chicago will probably leave around 8 p.m. That way the dogs can just go to sleep like they would at home. They would come in and go to bed for the night. They can go in their crates and go to sleep. It makes it much easier on them and on us too when we arrive. But traveling with a dog isn't that easy. There's a lot of paperwork, there's customs, there's all kinds of little things that go into it. And you want to get your dog as quickly as you can when you get off that plane because they've been in a crate for, 8, 9, 10 hours and they need to go outside. And it's much different than just flying, yourself on a vacation.
And Joy, I know you're racing in the Canicross class, and with that, you need the most minimal of equipment of all of the classes. And they have the scooter classes and the bike door classes and the rig classes and whatnot. Do you know what the other folks do for that equipment? Do they rent bikes or rigs from folks over there, or do they pack up these huge 4-wheeled rigs? I can imagine that can be really expensive to get over there.
Yes, I'm pretty fortunate in that, really what I need are my running shoes and my clothes and my dog and his gear. I'm not trying to fly a bike or a scooter, but a lot of people will rent the equipment. Some will ship their bikes, their bike cases and things like that you can ship, but those things get costly. So it's all sort of what your finances look like. And are you comfortable renting the equipment and, being on something maybe you haven't used before? Or would you prefer to take your own and, what's it cost to rent it? What does it cost to fly it? So there's a lot of factors involved, but I believe some people will be renting and I believe some people are looking at flying their equipment.
So one last question with regard to the race. Do you happen to know how many teams and potentially how many athletes will be in this event? And with that, do you know how many folks will be in your class?
I would venture to say, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe, and you know what, I'm not even going to try to answer the question about how many teams because it could vary from year to year. So I won't answer that because I don't want to say incorrectly. I would say there will probably be, in women's canicross, I would say 50 to 60 participants.
That's quite a few. I remember following a race last fall, I guess it was. I believe it was up in Canada, and there were several hundred entries up there. Have you ever been in an event that had that many folks racing on one weekend?
Yes, and you know what? It's a lot of fun. It might look like mass chaos, but it really is a lot of fun. I know, when we went to the World Championships in Poland a few years ago, there were several hundred teams. I just don't know how many that several hundred actually is. But, you see all of these teams from all the world, and it's just incredible. And you get to watch other mushers and how do they care for their dogs, how do they get their dogs ready, how do they do things. And you're seeing athletes from all these different countries, countries you might not even think of, looking at Mexico and South America, and people who have we think we travel a long way. And so it's just really incredible to see. This truly is a world championship event.
I said that was going to be my last question in regards to the race, but you led me into something right there. You had said that you like to see how folks from other countries are doing things, and when you think of it, I've been mushing in the U.S. and in Canada for 25 years or so, so I've seen a lot of things change over the years. But can you let us in on a little bit of the way different people do it from different cultures? I assume it's really similar, but what do you see that's different? Can you share?
It really is similar because first and foremost, the dog's safety and health, is what you're going to see come first, as it should. And so, you see people really taking care of their dog, no matter where they're from. What does their dog need? Is he ready to go? Does he have everything he needs? And then getting themselves ready as well. But, just the little differences in, what do people's rigs look like? How do they prepare themselves? How are the Canicross runners warming up? What brands of bikes are they using? What brands of rigs are they using? Just those little differences, because I'm relatively new to the sport, it was just really neat for me to be able to look at all of these athletes in these European countries who have been doing this for years and say, what can I learn from this and how can I bring that home, and introduce that to my own training with my dog so we can become, the best that we can be.
When I go to a dog sled race, Joy, I love going and looking at all the different types of dog trucks. It reminds me of going to like a car show, like a hot rod show, and you just see all the different variances of what people are using for their trucks. Do you enjoy that as well?
Yes, I do. And over there in Europe, you see a lot more vans, whereas in the U.S., I feel like we see more different types of dog trucks. And, of course, we had a rental vehicle, so it was, whatever we ended up renting is what we showed up with. But it was unique to see, how much pride they took in their team, too. How was their van taken care of? How was it decorated? What did the wraps look like? Those types of things. How did the team show up together? Did the whole French team come together? Did they have several vans? It was just a really unique experience to be able to see how these teams really showed up and, represented their countries.
So when you head over to Europe or wherever you visit as you're doing these events, you had mentioned you had been to Poland with your husband a couple of years ago. Do you take some time out either before or after just to be a vacationing tourist American like everybody else that travels?
We didn't. So both times we went to Poland, we were both competing. So we had 2 dogs with us. And it's sort of difficult because you don't want to have to leave your dog in your hotel or wherever you're staying. And, you want to see these things while you're there, but you're there to race and you're there for your dog as well. So one of the things that we try to do is, we try to eat at local places or shop at local places while we're there just to really get a feel for what these small towns that are hosting the events really have to offer. Of course, you're flying into a bigger city, so you're getting a taste for that. You're getting to eat right when you get there. You're seeing the airport, driving through those cities. But when we got out into the smaller areas, that was how we really tried to experience the culture, was just through the food and through the shopping and just meeting the people, because we didn't have a lot of time to sightsee because we didn't really think it was fair to our dogs.
So, Joy, before we talk about some of your sponsors and other people that you would like to thank, I always ask mushers that are on our show, I think you guys may call yourselves something different. I was corrected just the other day from a sprint musher. They call themselves drivers. What do you guys call yourselves before I ask you the question?
I guess I really don't have a preference. To me, because my primary sport is canicross, I'm a runner, I'm an athlete. And so it really doesn't matter to me. I guess I just really don't have a preference.
Oh, that's fine. So my question to you is, and again, I ask this to most folks that are on our show, is if you could give some advice to somebody that's interested in getting involved with this sport, whether it be canicross or bike drawing or even mushing, what would you tell these folks that come to you and say, hey, Joy, I'm interested. What can you teach me?
I think something that people need to remember is that you don't have to have a specific kind of dog to be involved. You might see at the highest level that people are racing with a certain breed, but you can do dog-powered sports with your dog. And that's what, I've told friends and people who wanted to get involved. It's all about the bond and the connection that you have with the dog. So if you have, a golden retriever, there's nothing that says you guys can't bike tour together or do canicross together. It's all about building that relationship and that bond and training the dog to do what you need to do. And yes, there are breeds who are going to do better at these sports than others just based on their physical build and their capabilities. But, a 20-pound dog can run canicross and, have a great time out there on the course. So I think it's all about having fun and just, doing what you enjoy with the dog that you care about.
Great advice. Thank you very much, Joy, for sure. So who would you like to thank? I know it takes a village to get over to do something like this, and you had mentioned you travel with your husband, and I'm sure you have commitments back home and things. Who would you like to thank here on the show?
So I definitely want to thank our sponsors. So our kennel, our team is sponsored by Nonstop Dog Wear, and they have been a huge support to us, with gear and just learning and training in general. So definitely a huge thanks to them. And we have a local farm in our area, Vest Livestock Farm, who has been great about helping provide us with some meat for our dogs. So we do some kibble, some meat. And then Stockton State Park Marina is another of our sponsors. They have some great trails and have really been great about us letting us use their space and their trails for training and things like that. So those are definitely the people I would like to thank. And, the first year that we went to IFSS and represented the U.S. at the championships, my employer, which is Jordan Valley Community Health Center, threw a big surprise party for Nick and I and the dogs, and did a food drive for one of the local shelters and just really, really got behind us and really supported us in our travels and in our racing. And we're seeing that again this year. So a big thanks to my coworkers and my employer as well.
That is awesome. I wish you the best of luck over in Sweden to all of the mushers and all of the racers and, of course, all of the dogs. Definitely travel safe and have a great time. And maybe we'll have you back on later in the year so you can talk a little bit about your experiences.
Well, hey, thank you. I really appreciate the time and getting to share, and thank you for thinking of us at Lucky Fox Racing. And I know we're looking forward to representing the U.S. over in Sweden this year.
That's awesome. Joy, hang on just a second while we close the show and we'll finish up. But on behalf of my guest today, Joy Weis, she is calling in from Missouri, and her website is luckyfoxkennel.com. Be sure to check them out and follow them on social media. There are some links on that page, and we'll put them on our show notes as well. My name is Robert Forto for Mushing Radio. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
From DogWorks Radio, this is Mushing Radio. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Alex Stein and Robert Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto, created for DogWorks Radio. Did you know that Alaska DogWorks trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska DogWorks on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.